Welcome to my snake game video. In this video I will explain my code step by step. Actually I will explain at first mainframe, then chrono class and game class. Let's start. In my mainframe I wanted to be a JFrame, so I imported JFrame. Then I declared my parameters width and height for my JFrame sizes. Then I created a JFrame object, I created a game object and set my needed. I set the default close operation, exit on close. If I click the exit button, it will exit directly. I set it flexible true. I set it resizable false because I don't want the user to change my sizes. I set the title with my game's name. I set the size. I set the location related to null because I want my game appear on the middle of my screen. And then I added my game to frame. I added KListener to frame, and in the end I set it visible to true because I want to see my frame. In main, I just created main frame object. That's all. There is no is a relation. There are lots of has a relation. And now I use chrono in my game class. I will explain it in secondly because it's more shorter than game class. Firstly, I declare my parameters as long because I use current time millis function. It returns millisecond in current time, so since its type is long, I made my parameters in long too. I set them. I set it start system point current time millis because I will use it in my algorithm. Then I created chrono pause, chrono resume, chrono update functions. All of them use system point current time millis like this. In chrono updates function, I made my chrono updating algorithm. It's so easy to understand actually. Stop minus start, resume minus pause. I brought my get chrono function. I want it in seconds, so I divided by 1000. Then if I wanted to in string, I made a new function public string get chrono string. Then it will return time to HMS. It's my function I wrote. Inside of it, actually, I just made an algorithm so easy for hour, minute, and seconds. I wanted to be written like that, so I use if, else, if, etc. and it will return time like this. Since I don't want to see numbers as 3 digits like 0, 1, 2, R, etc. I did this algorithm m bigger than 9. That means there will be no 0 if it's 2 digits. Then in my game class I imported so many packages. Then I extended with jpanel and implemented with KListener. Since KListener is an interface, I implemented. Then there are lots of parameters. Some of them are final because I don't want any class use them. So I initialize them, cell width, cell height, cell size. I describe my snake parameter as an ArrayList point because there will be coordinate in my frame, and I don't want to use like snake 1, snake 2. It's so tiring and nonsense. I made two parameters, one and pulse and equals to false. I used them in my functions. Then I made in direction. I use it in my switch cases. A point apple will appear randomly, and chrono in type of chrono class has a relation, And I initialize pet in string form because I want to save my high score in a text and I want to see it every time I open my game. Int high score equals to 0, boolean restart, boolean first for my first screen, then my J buttons, start, restart, resume, quit, and finally a loop. In my loop, I made action performed function which is overrode. I removed restart button and resume button. Then if pause is true, my tick function will work. Then if restart is false, my start function will run. And for final, repaint because I want to see what's going on in my frame. In my game constructor, I just wrote repaint method. Then in my start function, I cleared snake at first and described size as 1. I added to the frame my snake and run equals true. My game will be starting. Direction is 0 at first and apple will be generated randomly with my randApple function. I made new kernel high score equals to 0 at first. I made a file object because, like I said earlier, I wanted to save my high score like this, but it can throw I exception, so I use try catch block. In my try block, I use buffered reader for reading from file and equals to score. If my score's length is not 0, my high score will be updated like this and the reader will be closed. In my catch block, I exception will be thrown if it's an error, and in the end restart will false, first will false. In my loss function, run equals false. If size is bigger high score equals size because it will grow one by one. So this is the algorithm for it. Again, I made a try catch block for buffered writer. It will write file and with my append function it will convert it to string and it will close. Then in my roundable function there is a temp in type of point is equals null and there is a looper. While my temp is null, my x and y will randomly generated for my apple. This is the algorithm for it. There is a for loop. That means if apples x equals to snake's x, it will continue to loop. Temp will be equal new point x and y, and it will return temp. In my tick function, there is a good algorithm actually. I made snake algorithm like this. It will grow like this, and actually in switch case, I gave direction parameter and decreased or increased my y and axis for snake's moving action. Here I controlled if snake's x is equal to apple 6 and snake's y is equal to apple y. If it's like this, snake will be added and it will be increased, I mean size, and round apple will appear again. And there's a one condition also. If snake's x bigger than cell with -1 or like this, it will lost because I don't want my snake to hurt itself to crush cell. And also if it crush itself, it will lose again. In my paint component, all of my painting graphical things algorithms is here. I used paint components super and then I describe graphic as graphic 2D for a better controlling overall. Then I use set stroke with basic stroke. Then I use rake function. I made font. I set it and I set it color. This is for making lines actually. And for my buttons, I added action listener and overrode action performed. If quit buttons works, loop will stop and system will exit. I set it bounds and I added quit button to frame. All of them is like this, like this. Let's continue. In my keypress function, I overrode it and I made a key. Then I gave it to the switch case. Up W, I choose direction myself, and lost I set. That means if you press up and down, it will lost like this. You can think like this. And for pause, I choose escape and space buttons. For restarting, I choose R. This is the algorithm at all. Thank you for listening and watching me.